folks, we're back. This is Stephanie Phillips and Patsy Brown, and we are filling in for the guys. One is on vacation, one's not feeling well, so here we are. This is another episode of Veterans in Politics. Thanks for joining us. Patsy, thank you for joining us.
Of course. I always like a girls' day.
We have Miss Ida Tajalli here joining us. Tonight we're going to talk about family court and maybe some judicial candidates and just some things in general in politics. So, but before we get to you, Ida, Patsy, do you have any rants?
No rants yet.
Really?
But let's get going. And I think I'm gonna have
what's going on in the country.
You know, I'm trying to stay calm.
Jack Smith,
today.
the new indictment.
I'm going to be nice right now.
Okay.
Let me get warmed up a little.
Okay, then we might
then you won't be able to shut me up, But I'm usually good for a pretty good rant. So
okay, Ida, give us a background and how long you've been here, what you do for a living, and all that.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me here today, So I've been a resident of Las Vegas for over 20 years. I'm an implant from Michigan, and I am a paralegal in town. I've been doing it for almost 20 years. I've run across Steve in the past, been following him and his work in the organization for almost a decade, and then we recently crossed paths for this year, especially for judicial elections and selections. So that's.
So what is your, he does a lot of work in the family court and exposes corruption and things like that about judges, but you've had your own experience in family court, right?
Yes, I personally had experience in family court or people nearby me who have had experiences and kind of have confided as far as observations and experiences in family court. I had a custody situation back in 2015 from what used to be Judge Brown's court, and now it's Nadine Cutter in her place. I had a round with Lisa Brown, and thankfully she retired. And then I had another round in front of Judge Cutter when she was recently elected to the bench at that time. I think it was end of 2019, 2020. So
you were 4 years going through that case?
So no. The first round in 2015 lasted about a year and a half. And we settled out. We did not go to trial. But then the second round, it actually encompassed both Judge Brown at the time and then Nadine Cutter, in that there was another custody issue that started in May of 2018, and then basically it ended early 2019, and then had a break, and then went back, I believe, end of 2019, and then it went till about 2021.
But you're all done with that?
Oh, yeah. Thankfully, yes. We're all done.
Did you work for the courts at one point?
Yes, actually, I did. Thanks for mentioning that. I worked at the 8th Judicial District Court in the Criminal Civil Division for about almost 5 years. I was a calendar clerk. So I was clerking calendars for about 6 judges at the time. And I can say that all of them now, minus one, Judge Weiss is on the bench, but everyone else have retired or are gone or deselected.
Curious, I want to go back a little bit
Sure.
to your 2 cases.
Okay.
What was your experience when you were going through those 2 cases in reference to the mood of the judges with you? How was your interaction during those cases with
So the
those judges?
first round, I had an attorney.
Okay.
You know, in hindsight, I guess because I had an attorney, it seemed fair.
And I'm asking in reference
Yeah.
to the transparency
Yeah.
of those cases.
Sure.
Because I know it's been an issue
Oh, yeah. And I'll get to that.
that family court is kind of close.
Yeah, so I'll get to
So I'm
that
just-
too, because
yeah.
I opined on that thereafter. So the first round, I felt it was fair, and that was only because I had an attorney. And then, like, the other side was an attorney plus an attorney, so it seemed fair.
Mhm.
But the second round, I had an attorney for 2 seconds, and then I was pro se. So I was pro se and outmanned and outnumbered with the judge on the bench, the other side being an attorney, having 2 attorneys, and then like a non-party being an attorney, and they have an attorney. So I felt very outnumbered.
Do you think it would have gone differently if it was open to the public?
You know, my
Just
case
as
from
a
the get-go,
perception.
my case from the get-go, from the onset,
Mhm.
I decided to close it and seal it from the onset back in the day. Given everything that went on, and especially like towards the end and the second round and everything, I think if it was open, probably and more than likely everyone would be under P's and Q's probably. And I think after all that, there was a whole, I believe, I can't recall if it started from legislature or if it started from our Nevada judges, the whole opening the courts. And then there was like a backlash. No one wanted the attorneys didn't want it, the judges didn't want it. And I opined on an interview with Alexander Falcone at the time that it should be open because people should be able to see how judges and attorneys on both sides act and react and rule.
Mm-hmm. So we can agree that people act differently behind closed doors?
Yeah,
Okay.
sure. It's probably different when and if there's cameras or
It's a lot more accountability when there's cameras and it's open and people are watching.
or you
to see.
you know, watch how you speak or how you act or how you behave,
The
whether
oversight is different.
right. And then so I'm happy fast forward, and that interview was like it was like in 2019 or 2020 of sorts, and I'm happy that they prevailed, and now there's Supreme Court law made that the courts, whether it's family or even criminal, civil courts, are now open. And I think there's maybe absent like procedure or something or hearing that would have to happen to try to close it, if I'm not mistaken. Don't quote me on that part of it, but I know now that there's actual law made that
February 2023.
there you go. Yep.
Yeah.
So
Paying attention. Just a little bit.
I know it was recent. I just didn't know that. I know it was well after my experiences in the courts. So I'm happy that now there's more openness and accessibility for the public. And hopefully no one has to, be in any of those courts.
So you were here a couple of weeks ago, Alan Lefebvre. Did I get that right, Alan? Sorry if I messed up your name.
But I was in the shadow.
Yes. But you were listening and support him, I believe, in his run. And I believe he's running Department 14. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
But he's running against Judge Talim. And it was also brought up at that interview about the Judicial Selection Commission, how only one person had submitted an application and they only sent one person to the governor, and the Constitution says three.
Right.
And usually when they don't have many applicants, it's sent back, re-advertised, more, put their applications in, and then they have more to pick from.
Right. I just find it really hard to believe that there's only one applicant.
I know.
I've never
found that very
seen that.
odd. Yeah.
It's always a ton where flooded, because I know there's a lot of qualified people that had they have known that this opening was there, they would have applied.
Yeah, I went down and observed and gave some input on one particular candidate in opposition of, this was, I don't know, a couple of years ago now. By now, there were several seats or a few seats they were looking to fill. So there was a lot of applicants down there, a lot of them, and multiple for each seat that they were looking to fill. So I got to see how that works and all of that. And if they didn't have enough applicants, then it was advertised for a longer period of time. They extended the deadline and more people came in. So this particular one was interesting with just one, which is Judge Talim, and her, I don't know if it's her husband, boyfriend, significant other that she's been with for a long time as the assistant district attorney, is what I understand, right? And so I don't know if that had anything to do with it, right? Because she worked in the DA's office before that. But tell us why you support Alan Lefebvre and give us some background there, because you and Tina were married to the same man several years ago, right?
The plot thickens. Go ahead.
So I just want to preface that the support for Alan, first of all, it stems from the need to have more civil judges on the bench. I've noticed over time, and especially with my time working at the courthouse, there was a significant amount of balance between men and women judges. And there was a significant balance between criminal background judges, whether it's the PD's office or a DA's office. And then there was civil judges who were in the civil law field who became judges. And then something happened in the last wave of elections where basically a lot of seasoned judges who happened to be male got debenched and not selected. And so now in a district of almost 52 judges, it's predominantly women. I mean, that's great. Okay, we're all women. Go women. And however, they are more of either they come from the PD's office or the DA's office. Right. You barely have anyone left from just being a civil judge or having a complete civil background. So in that case, I've been basically Team Allen and hoping that he gets on the bench. And then there's also Terry Kofing, who's going and running for Department 27. And I'll get to that because, so I'll get to the judicial selection too, because it's related. In that also Department 27, Judge Alf retired, so that had a vacancy. So this year we had, Department 27, we had Department 14, Judge Escobar retired, so there was vacancies. And from reading and knowing all the judicial selections and processes and people, there was at least a handful of candidates for Department 27. And I think Judge Mendoza got appointed, all said and done. But what I saw was, okay, if there was 6 candidates in one department and it's literally the same time and same year, right? Why wouldn't those candidates also be considered and referred for another vacant department, which is Department 14? So I feel that the Judicial Selection Committee somehow, some way definitely erred in that, and, the whole Constitution and then the governor, Judge Talim, was a DA. The governor Lombardo was a former sheriff, very close ties. I believe it's probably not an accident. There was just one and then one got selected.
Well, I have a question.
Sure.
Because I've looked at it.
Yeah.
So these applications they submit, I remember there's a section in the application that asks you your level of experience.
Yeah.
For civil, criminal, family. And I do recall looking at a few of those appointment applications, and they were clearly unqualified to be put or placed in a civil position.
Yeah, and especially in this case, the current presiding judge has 99% criminal experience and 1% stemming back from over 20 years ago for less than a year.
Exactly.
At Alverson Taylor, that's no longer existent.
Right.
But that calendar is going to be a split calendar
It's
at
supposed
some
to
point.
be. But it's not
in
now.
January, not now. So it's all.
And when you fill out the application, you put, I'm not qualified for this position. I have,
Well, from
this
experience that I've seen, and I was doing judges' calendars, and I was part of the changes when judges would come on, get elected or not. There was always, December, January was always kind of crazy because they would reshuffle the departments.
Yeah. Okay, here's the rant. The rant is coming.
Okay. So they would reshuffle the departments based on who got elected and their experience. So based on observation and experience, the new judge usually gets a civil docket completely. But I've seen in the past, it would be at least over a year, 2, 3, and then it would be shuffled to a split docket. But from what I'm hearing, in less than a year, it's going to go from civil to split docket. So I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure if something changed or whatnot. But, it's kind of concerning as of right now that someone...
Very concerning.
Her significant other, from what I understand, is, if he's an assistant DA and works in that office and they're bringing cases before her, you know, when she gets a criminal calendar, how, you know, is she going to recuse herself? How is that going to work? That could be a conflict of interest in some cases.
You took the first half of the rant.
Right.
And I'm going to do in the second half. So I think people forget for some reason that attorneys are like doctors. They have specialties. You can't flip-flop between criminal and civil and family and know your craft. It's too much information. There's too much precedent. It's too much. Either you specialize or you don't. You know it or you don't. You don't go to the cardiologist when you have a problem with your foot. You need a podiatrist. You know, and in the case of law, for some reason, they think it's okay to flip-flop between specialties, and you shouldn't, especially if you know you're not qualified.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that's good. You know, you go from civil, and then it's going to be criminal civil, and then your fiance, significant partner, is the ADA,
right?
Which
that's
all
crazy.
the criminal cases stem from the DA's office. And he's overseeing, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's crazy.
He's overseeing all the deputies, all the cases, regardless. It stems from Wolfson Daskis, and then she's on the bench. So I don't see how it could not be a conflict that she gets any criminal cases. And then, if that gets addressed, if at all it gets addressed, we'll see how this all turns out, right? Then it'll be civil, and then civil, there's no experience. So all in all, I don't see how she'd be the best qualified candidate for that bench. And so that is why I've been behind Mr. Allen's campaign. And, you know, he also brought up in his interview a very good point. I hope people have listened to it and seen it, but you know, he did address that on the flip side. He's had civil but not criminal experience. And one thing I believe it's true, he made a distinction that, well, criminal cases, there's not many changes with statutes and all of that, because it's like, okay, you do a murder, you do this, you got these guidelines, you know, there's not much change. Versus civil law, there's always changes. Like, that's why there's rules of procedure in 16.1 or 16.2, and they're changing. Yeah, they keep changing the procedures, the deadlines, the this, the that, you know. And so there's a constant change. So how does one, you know, keep up with that if you're practicing completely all criminal, right?
My point exactly.
But this goes a little bit deeper for you, though, because of the personal relationship and who you were married to and who she
So
was.
then that's the second.
Yeah.
I'll put it down as the second, you know, that's not the first, but it's the second, right? You know, yes. We intertwined because we shared the same ex-husband. And so...
Did you both have kids with him? She had kids with him?
No, I do not. I did not.
Oh,
I do not.
Okay.
No.
And can you just clarify, like, who was first, who was second, who?
Okay.
Like, what? I need clarification.
So they were married first.
Okay.
I came in about almost a decade after.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so, because of the fact that it was a decade, you know, after, I guess I, you know, came in and, oh no, you know, there's the new wife and, oh my God.
And younger.
The stepmom.
Yeah.
To then twin.
What?
It's okay. It's okay. The twin 9-year-olds at the time. So And my daughter at the time from a previous relationship, she was a year and a week old. So she was like the weakest, youngest one, like, shouldn't even be involved with nothing, right? So, but basically, long story short, and this will go back to why rooting for Alan for being judge, and it goes to temperament and character. They were also in family court. So I had my first round of family court, right? My second one stemmed actually from their family court case. Oh. Otherwise, I wouldn't have ever been back.
Okay.
And it stemmed because when they had their family court case, and at the time it was in front of Judge Hughes, who also got debenched, is no longer a judge. She did not like the judge's decision at the time. The judge saw through the parties' situation and basically had ordered specific things so that there would be mending offenses between new wife and the kids, and then everyone else trying to foster that relationship, because it was hostile, contentious, and to the point where it affected the kids. But it wasn't, for me, it was the point of the fact that I was just there. Right. I'm the new wife, new now a stepmom. And so she didn't like the ruling, and she decided to use her resources and information and go find who my previous partner was, the father of my daughter, and decided to go have a phone call. And from there, I got surprised with a motion for change of custody. So we can open discovery. So there was double dippings. And so if a person in that capacity and power cannot respect a judge's decision and does anything in any way to get the result they want at the expense of a 3-year-old, then they should not be a judge. If you can't respect a judge's decision and you go take matters in your own hands and try to get results your way, then how should you be a judge? And you're the judge.
And what was your response?
Well, I basically fought tooth and nail. It required, they settled out their family court case, and at the time, my ex-husband did it to help us, so that we don't have 2 cases at the same time in the court. However, the damages were so done, it didn't matter, and so carried out. And so at one point, I think she did not want to continue. And then I made some motions in court. I'm like, no, let's go. I want my day in court in front of the person who's making all sorts of accusations, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, And so it took a lot of time and resources, blood, sweat, and tears, so that I can get my daughter back. I lost my daughter over
what she did?
Over what she did. I lost 1,043 days of my daughter's life because
at the age of 3,
she was turning 3.
Oh my God.
And so You know, and I've been in legal for 20 years. I've worked at the courthouse for 5 years.
Right.
I've done background. You don't just get to work at the 8th Judicial District Court.
Right.
Okay. I've been volunteering for Legal Aid of Southern Nevada for the kids as a volunteer educational surrogate for over 6 years. You have court orders over foster kids, kids that are not your, so you can't just get orders. Like, people with issues or anything in their background or background check, you can't just get that, right? And so basically, and this is Judge Brown time, when there is smoke, there may be fire. So let's change custody temporarily. And so I lost my daughter for...
You didn't get to see her? You didn't have visitation?
I had visitation for 4 days a month. 4 days a month. The kids that I foster, I'm their legal custodian for their school purposes, not like legal.
Gotcha.
Those kids had access to their parents who didn't have custody and they were in the care of the county,
Right.
Those parents had more access
Than you did.
with and without supervision than I did with my own kid. So
there's no drugs, there's no abuse, neglect, and a judge decides
no CPS.
to take a child in your custody. What was your custody arrangement? Was it 50-50?
It was 50-50.
Okay.
At the time she was young, it was 2-2-3. So we were sharing her, and it was 2-2-3, switching constantly. And basically that day, next thing you know, Dad go pick up kid, and didn't see my daughter for that month till about 2 weeks.
And this was,
And
what
then it was
judge
40.
ruled on this?
This was
Rainey
Lisa Brown at the time.
Oh, Lisa Brown.
In my case.
Okay.
Because their case in front of Raina Hughes was going, and then with what she did, contacting my daughter's father and all that, that prompted a motion in front of Lisa Brown. So at that time there was like 2 open cases, which in retrospect, it's bizarre that 2 judges have a case with almost the same parties and people, whether they're the parties or the witness, and then what got flip-flopped. So it should have been in front of just one judge, but...
And at the time, you were still married to the husband, right?
Yes, I was married.
So
to her ex-husband.
To her,
Yes.
right.
Yes.
Are you still married to him, or now he's your ex?
No, I...
A lot of strain from all of that.
basically the strain, the emotional, the mental, the
Right.
financial, everything.
Wow.
It's strained. And then you can add COVID, and all this is also going through COVID,
Oh, wow.
on and off, and on my end. And then, with him,
How old is your daughter now?
she just turned 9 this summer.
9. And so are you back to the 50-50?
Oh yeah, we got back to 50-50.
And you co-parent
In March of
well with your,
2021.
with him? Do you
and
guys get
yeah.
along now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like, now we're week on, week off, and past is a past. My daughter's 9 and 4th grade. But with that change, going from 4 days a month to then, okay, you get 6 days a month, and then go back and get your 50 rest, like completely back, that itself I had to rectify with my daughter.
But that took, 3 years?
Yeah. So basically 3 years, and then 3 years to undo those 3 years,
Yeah.
So, but yeah, all of that put a strain completely on the marriage. And unfortunately, that was all said and done in the summer of 2022. Yeah, a couple years now. So, but so that's basically my experience and why I am rooting for Anne Lefebvre to be judge in Department 14.
So you have personal experience with this, with your child and all of that. And is it her temperament and her choices and character because of your experience with her in the past that you think that she shouldn't be on the bench?
Yeah, if someone, that's the temperament. If you can't respect the decision of a judge and then you take matters in your own hands, well, it goes say, and then you're a judge. And then that person, especially if and when they get a criminal docket, they can just throw the book.
Abuse of power.
No, it does. And they have a lot of discretion,
They do.
on a lot of this stuff.
Whether it's civil, you're going to compound the attorney's fees. You're going to increase appeals for either side, plaintiff or defendant. Wrongful attorney's fees, then more cost of money to do appeals. And then on the criminal side, okay, well, when it comes to any sentencings, who goes to say, this person, whatever, let me do maximum sentencing or something, they have so much discretion. Who goes to say that, they're going to, give a chance, or there was an interview I saw that, or something, even in the application, something about leeway or, and I'm thinking, okay, that's all good now,
Right.
but you're running. But when it comes down to it and you stay in power, anything can go.
Right.
So that goes to temperament and character. How far are you going to go to get what you want? Even if it goes, beyond all sorts of
Seniors and babies, she doesn't care. She's wild. That's
if you don't like something or someone or a judge or whatever, I mean, leave the kids out of it, or leave,
That's difficult. I'm a mom and I have 2 kids. They're grown now, but I understand, when I got divorced, my kids were 2 and 5 and they were little, but my ex and I, we got along, we co-parented, we never went to court. We didn't have that type of experience. And it was great. We worked well together and we're, still friends, great friends to this day. But as a mom, I can't even imagine losing my kid for 3 years. And then the cause of that is another mom who should understand that a mom being with her child, now, unless the mom is abusive, unless the mom is on drugs, unless the mom is neglectful, in those circumstances, no, they shouldn't be with their child. But it doesn't sound like this is the case. And as a mom, I would think that you would understand that and not want to separate that child or do things to separate that child, because the child needs a mom. They need their dad. Both play an important role in their life.
Especially at that age specifically.
Yeah, very young.
I mean, even those ex-stepkids, to get told even ridiculous things because you're a DA, she's, she, all sorts of types of things, because you're DA, you're going to feed to your 9-year-olds that, this lady's going to do harm to you, or all these things, to the point where you're, I can't think of the word. There's a word for it when you're,
was jealousy a factor? Did you feel like?
Yes. New wife.
It was control, because when I stepped in, things things were changing so that there could be facilitating blending of the families, like, and boundaries and things of that, and, I respect co-parenting and, not being enemies, everyone getting along.
I'm curious, was she in a relationship?
The whole time she was in a relationship.
She was.
The same person.
Yes.
The assistant district attorney.
Yes.
So she, okay.
And just for clarification, we're talking about I said Talim, but it's Talim.
Talim, yeah.
Okay, forgive me for the mispronunciation. Judge Talim is not married, right?
They're not married,
but have
they're
been
together.
a significant other of the
So
assistant district
the
attorney.
ex is still, I'm assuming there's child support for the twins. Was there spousal support? She was the ex-wife.
No,
Okay.
there wasn't.
I'm just curious if there was some
Yeah,
financial tie
no,
to maybe.
no, but it ended up because of all that, there was child support.
Right.
Does the father of your child, does he feel bad now in retrospect, talking with her and kind of, he had to have known what was going on. Does he feel bad that your child was taken from you for that long and that you guys, or was he kind of part of that or in that?
He's a type, we get along, we share a daughter, have to get along for her sake and everything. And, it was more of, at the times, because of before my marriage and the second round, before that, it was more of you stay in your lane, I stay in my lane. That's how we co-parent. It wasn't like
Just kind of surface, superficial.
they call it either you co-parent or parallel parent, right? But you get along by getting along, meaning you're not adversarial in court, right? So we're doing that, and then all this happened. It was basically an opportunity given to him. So if someone gets an opportunity that lands in their plate, they're going to run with it to try to see what they can get, right? So that's what ended up happening,
Was he, by chance, because your daughter was really young when you married your husband? You said she was like 1.5 years, I think, when you went into the new marriage?
So I wasn't married.
Well, you were about to marry your ex.
My ex-husband now.
Yes.
Tina's ex-husband too.
Right.
Yeah.
But your daughter at the time
She was
like
a year and a week old.
That's still young.
Very young.
So was the father, maybe he was a little upset or jealous that you got married? Or you had started another relationship?
Probably.
A little bit?
Just
trying to figure out, this.
Probably. I was never in that mindset,
You weren't, but I'm just saying for him.
Probably.
So when you said that he found an opportunity, he felt a little.
Probably.
excited.
And, he'll stand by, I'm protecting my daughter's best interest, I heard all these things.
Hater pants, yeah.
But it's like, okay, well, in retrospect, we share a kid how many years? And then there comes a total stranger knocking your door.
Right.
And you are aware
Right.
that I had issues.
Right.
And I had strains that, I have a 1.5 year daughter. And then it's not easy having twin ex-stepkids now, at the time. Now, in retrospect, with all that said and done, to answer your question, I think there is some guilt, but it'll never be admitted.
But you guys still have a ways to go. You still have a ways to parent and get along and all of that.
Yeah, so. That was just probably a dark chapter.
Yeah.
That she's not even really aware. She's aware that there was a period of time I wasn't around. Right. Kids are pretty resilient and they know and sense things. But the rest of it and the details she absolutely doesn't know. But obviously she knew, and since like I'm not there, and then mom was married, mom's now not married, so it's the extent of it.
Did you ever call Tina and say, woman to woman, mom to mom, let's sit down and have a face-to-face and have a conversation? Was that ever an option?
I tried in the beginning when I was engaged and getting married. I was trying to I did meet with her, just feel like, try to...
Not trying to take your kid.
Yeah, like let's you have kid, I have kid, let's have that go. Yeah. The first time was okay. The second time was okay. Our kids met at Barnes and Nobles. Okay. The rest of it at softball games and all, it went. And in the beginning, my ex-husband at the time, or my husband at the time, was like, don't. I'm like, no, it's good. We should. It's good. Try it for the kids, and with dads and girls, it's probably hard all around. Mm-hmm. They're not going to probably be like doing that, so someone has to try to. Anyways, then I realized after that, he was kind of right, because no matter what I said or did, it wasn't going to matter.
She had it out for you from the beginning.
Yeah,
basically.
because I came and changed the dynamics, even though they're co-parenting or whatever else. It just, I should not exist. End of story.
Well, he spent 10 years without a replacement for her.
Right.
Forgive my wording.
Basically,
I'm sure that was a shock.
Yeah. So if you're doing something and
for 10, and she probably got used to it.
Some people don't take change
very well.
People are creatures of habits, and then some people don't do well with change, and I guess that's probably it.
So do you think that there was some kind of inside workings, preferential treatment, whatever you want to call it, for there to be only one application, one person considered and sent to the governor for that particular seat?
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. There had to have been. I mean, her background's from DA. She is in a relationship with the ADA, and the governor is a former sheriff, and the sheriff's office and law enforcement, Metro and DA, really close knit, and close ties. And then, definitely there's some kind of relation and connection. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can't not see it. I mean, it's pretty obvious. And then there were 6 candidates, so 1 got selected. So what happened to another 5? I mean, not for nothing, the bar number in this town is like in the 16,000s. And I believe to even try to be a judge, I think it's like 5 to 10 years of experience practicing before you can run. So let's say anyone in the 10,000. So basically, there's all these people, right? And then there's 6. So then there's remaining 5. So what happened to them? They didn't get their names up there. Why couldn't they be considered? I mean, if that was legit, those 5 names went up and she was part of it and that got selected, okay, maybe we could take some of the argument out. But the fact that there was just 1.
And the Constitution says they shall send 3.
Yeah.
So if this is ruled somehow that she's an unconstitutional judge, because if it's found they violated the Constitution, they didn't send 3 up. The governor didn't send it back and say, hey, send me 3. Mm-hmm. So all these cases that she's ruling on right now in this status, could you see the lawyers coming back and saying, hey, you're an unconstitutional judge. Your ruling is, out the window. Could they appeal? Could that be grounds for appeal?
I don't know, to be honest, because that's I'm not a lawyer and, a bit beyond me, but I would think that somebody...
Did Alan talk about that particular subject?
Yeah, he did. And
I can't remember what
he did a better job
said.
Explaining and whatnot, because he is a lawyer, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, someone, whether it's a lawyer or someone in public, should petition or do something about it. I'm not sure if there is a movement about that, the constitutionality, but I would hope that the legal community realizes the whole constitutionality of all of this, the whole experience as far as the non-experience as in civil law, and then the relationship with the ADA, the governor, and, DA's office. Like, there's 3 big things. I would hope that both people in the legal community, pay more attention and do something about it. And also those in the public who will, regardless, vote, will pay attention and do something about it too. So,
but I would say a lot of them don't want to speak up because they may be, in her courtroom, or, they don't want to make waves. And in that, it's a very small circle there. So I imagine somebody speaking out against this, whether they're a judge, a sitting judge, a lawyer, talking about.
I don't think it would be a sitting judge, because at the end of the day, judges, that's their circle. Mm-hmm. So I don't think anything would come from the bench. And I don't know how much a chief judge has power about the docket and whatnot. I don't know where that stems from, but I don't think it would come from anyone on the bench. It would have to be the public and the legal community. So I'm not sure.
Probably more so the public.
Yeah, that's a
public.
I don't think
I would say
that's
the public,
a legal nightmare.
The legal community.
That's a nightmare.
It's a bit, monies,
because they'd be questioning the Judicial Selection Commission, and they could be an applicant at some point. And if they're the ones that spoke out about, the constitutionality of this particular appointment and calling them out for accountability, how's that going to be for them when, if they come up for, are an applicant for an open seat at some point? So they're not. Mess. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would imagine they wouldn't want to do that, but it's got to be the public and holding people accountable. This is what slays me. People are so afraid to question authority, question leadership, question, in politics, question our politicians and elected officials. It's our duty as people, we the people, to question leaders.
Absolutely.
We have to hold them accountable. And, if it's found that nothing was improper, wonderful. But if it was, be accountable, because those people would not be there in those elected positions without we the people. And, people are kind of afraid, for the most part, to step out and ask those questions that a lot of people have.
I'm going to be honest. I've had a lot of back and forth within myself about being here and speaking today. And as far as, and that goes to standing up and accountability. But especially I feel if it's wrong, if one is done wrong, it could happen to anybody.
Well, you experience people abusing their power in relationships. Right. That's how you got here.
Exactly. And if it can happen to one in the community, it can happen to anybody. So knowledge is power, and, hopefully, people don't vote for her, so that the public is safe.
So you came on here, you can risk, you know, there's a lot of things that could be at risk. Backlash, your daughter's father could hear this and have possibly an effect on your working relationship and parenting relationship. Judge Talim, you know, all the people that we've asked about and all of that, but you're still willing to come and say what your experience was so that the public knows, because the public doesn't have that knowledge. Mm-hmm. And most people, we've talked about this, you know, a lot. People never know their judicial candidates. No. It's like, it's so difficult for, you know, I get all kinds of calls. I'm sure you do too. Steve does. Who do you vote for judges? Because nobody really knows the judicial candidates. And they are some of the most important for a lot of these reasons that we are talking about today.
They make decisions
about your life, and they have a lot of power.
Right.
And some abuse that power.
Right.
You know, we've seen that. There's corruption. There's all kinds of things that happen, and people get really arrogant and entitled when they have power. And I've seen that with, you know, politicians, elected leaders. And once that goes to their head, you know, they think they can just do whatever they want to.
Yeah. And even currently now, I guess not a lot of the family court benches are on the ballot this time, but the next one, there should be one that really should not be on the bench anymore. And that's a case close to me because her and I have been in family court probably the same amount of time. And our kids are about a year and a half apart. And that's how we met. Mm-hmm. We met from my first round. And unfortunately, so the other side's attorney is Melvin Grimes. Have you heard of him?
Mm-hmm. I don't think so. No.
Well, there was an interview. I think Steve did. His nickname is Greasy Grimes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So basically, long story short, and I can't give names and stuff because out of respect to her and the case and, you know, appeals going on and whatnot. But that judge should not be on the bench because of her temperament and her decision making and bias. Some judges become a bias of one parent. Mm-hmm. Either they are dad happy or mom happy. In this case, she's a dad happy person and has caused a lot of damage to my girlfriend's side, basically emotional, financial, and affecting the daughter, like affecting her because of the judge's decision.
Yeah.
This is another judge affecting a child's decision, just like that judge affected my child's decision. So thankfully she retired that year for the, you know, for second round and third round, and Judge Cutter came on and gave me my 50% right back. So yeah, there are those judges do affect and impact people's lives, and there should be more people in public should be more informed in some shape or form or another. And I'm glad that Steve and you guys have the organization where you guys share and relate information to the public and it's accessible, and, you know, if people want to see it and read it, it's there.
Before we end, I want to talk about Steve's book, because we're talking about family court, and it's very appropriate. But before that, do you have any other questions?
Rant?
No, we split the rant, and you took the first half, I took the second. No, I'm good.
And is there anything else that we didn't cover that you want to bring up and that you want to say?
I think we covered a lot in like an hour.
It wasn't as bad as you know.
No. No, I just, I hope that there's going to be a Judge Kofi and a Judge Lefebvre come November and getting sworn in January 2025. I'll end with that.
Well, for everybody out there and who doesn't know, Steve has written a book, and you guys all know the work that he does, for family court and holding these judges accountable. And there's a lot of litigants like yourself. You were representing yourself. So the ones who do not have a lawyer and represent yourself, this book, How to Navigate Nevada's Family Court System. So get your book. You can get this on Amazon, and there's the back. And if you get one, Steve will sign it for you. You have your copy coming. This is my copy. So anyway, I just want to encourage everybody that this book is out there now, and he spent quite a bit of time on this, and I know he's very proud of it. So get your copy, and if you want to give a point of contact for people, if they want to get a hold of you, if you want to, you can. If you don't, that's okay too. But if you want to give some closing remarks to the people, you can.
Yeah, I just want to thank you guys and Steve and you guys today for having me to share my story. I hope that, there was useful information and that provides for guidance into how to vote come November.
Well, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
We appreciate it. Thank you, Patsy, for co-hosting with me. Thanks, everybody, for watching. They'll wrap it up for another episode of Veterans in Politics, and we'll see you next time.